Welcome to MalcolmPresents.com with our show, Syd and Malcolm. And Syd is the founder of Rock and Wrap It Up, which has fed millions of people over the last 30 years.
Yeah, it's starting our 32nd year.
32nd years. And you hear this exclusively on MalcolmPresents.com, a new streaming internet service that has a variety of podcasts and Zoomcasts that you can hear nowhere else. Anyway, Syd, welcome aboard.
Thank you. And it's a disturbing week with Russia invading the Ukraine, but there are many reasons why Russia needs to do this. And two of them have to do with the future of Russia, and one of them is the future of the Ukraine. So in the future of Russia, Russia recognizes that the landmass that it's in is in pretty high latitude. The Ukraine has probably the best farming land in all of Europe. They could feed over 500 million people just from the land that they have, and it's black dirt, which is the best dirt to grow in. So they have a reason to be invaded by the Russians so they could feed their people in the future. And the other is the natural resources of the Ukraine. Not that it's a landlocked country with fabulous seas that go to the Mediterranean, but they have uranium, they have copper, they have amazing resources that Russia does not have. Couple that with Putin would like to have a Soviet Union again, which broke up 30 plus years ago. But Ukraine could be the first step. And after that, Latvia, Estonia, possibly Poland, all of which they would like to take a hold of again, up to East Germany. Whatever made up the Soviet Union in the past, Putin would like to have back. For economic reasons, they want to have a captive market to sell to, since they probably will not be able to sell to the West. The West will shun them, though the US did a horrific thing in cutting down the pipeline when Biden came into power. We're now importing 500,000 barrels a day at $35 million a day from Russia. The US is right now. We are actually supporting the war in the Ukraine. Our payment for oil is funding this war.
Well,
it would not have happened had the US had a pipeline.
Aren't we cutting that off, the oil imports from Russia?
Absolutely not.
No?
The Russians have their own oil. And the US cannot stop buying oil from Russia because our economy would go down. Today, the most horrible thing happened for the United States. The price of oil per gallon went up to $104 a barrel. It was hovering at 60 when President Trump was in power. So now you have a 70% increase, which means that I know California is already paying $5 a gallon. We're paying $3.75 a gallon right now, up from $2.20. So all of this is unfortunate, but again, we are in a position that is a no-win for the United States.
As I said, you have spreading misinformation. California, parts of California are spending over $6 a gallon.
I stand corrected. We are in a dilemma because the Ukraine, and by the way, I have had no love for Ukrainians for many, many years, because that's where the Cossacks came from that killed Jews in the 1880s, 90s, and early 1900s. Also, at the onslaught of World War II, 100,000 Ukrainians joined the Nazis to slaughter the Jews. There was not one war crime ever done in the Ukraine because of the complicity of the Ukrainian people. Now, that's 80 years ago. I would say none of them are living that were in their 20s in 1939 and 40. But it's very hard for me to have any kind of pity or rachmanis on them because of their past actions to kill my family and
Yeah.
your family.
Isn't there a large Jewish population in Ukraine?
Doesn't matter.
I mean, because I know a lot of
They choose to live there. That's up to them. That's not going to stop me from hating the forebearers of the Ukrainians that are living there now. And it's sad, but it'll take me another 50 years. I hope I live to 130, so I could, in the back of my mind, maybe forgive what they did to all of us. They killed us, and they pointed out Jews in cities like Kiev and Lvov, and the cities that had huge Jewish populations. They sent them to the gas chamber, or they murdered them in ravines and valleys like Babi Yar. All of these were Ukrainians, and they hated Jewish people.
Well, isn't that almost true with the entire world?
I could focus on other places, but I'd rather focus on the Ukrainians. They are right here in our face.
I told you, my son got me this subscription to Ancestry.com.
Sure.
And I knew my I never knew my grandparents, but I know that they came over from Russia on my father's side. And some people say, well, it's not Russia, it could be, another satellite from Russia. It could be Ukraine. It could be Lithuania. I think we talked about it last time.
Right.
And I took a spit test. I spit it in, and then 2 months later, I got this thing back. You are definitely Eastern European Jew. I know that, but from what country? They couldn't specify the country.
Right. And it'll get a little bit better. The more people that put their database in and have good family histories of where they're from, they'll be able to identify your DNA to specific areas. My wife's family, half of them come from Central Asia, and they were able to pinpoint that area. And 2 of my 5 children have Asian features.
Yeah, I think we heard that. That's Mongolia or out of Mongolia.
Yeah. And Diane's grandmother looked exactly like that as well. So that's where one of my sons and one of my daughters look Asian.
Well, that's that old joke about the Korean soldier walking around, Seoul, Korea one night, and it was very quiet, and all of a sudden he hears this familiar chanting, and he walks inside, and it's these Koreans, and they're davening. And he goes up to one of them in the back, and he says, "Excuse me, sir, what are you doing?" And the Korean says, "We're davening." And the soldier says, "Well, why are you davening?" And the Korean looks at him and says, "We're Jewish." And the Korean looks at the soldier and says, "Funny, you don't look Jewish."
So it is. The other thing which is difficult, I believe that the price of everything that has already been inflated over the last year will only continue to go up because there's now supply chain issues to blame. I am interested in a couple of things, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope that the Chinese do not use this as an excuse to go in and to look to take over Taiwan. If they see that the rest of the world is really protesting Russia, I think that will help Taiwan. If the world did not have this group peace thing, I think that China would be a little bit more inclined to use this time of derision and confusion and chaos in our world to go in and take over Taiwan. And I don't know what the US would do.
Yeah, well, The thing is with right now with Russia, it seems like Western Europe is getting together. They're strengthening. NATO is being strengthened by these actions, which was unanticipated by Putin. But I don't know if China goes into Taiwan, who would, aside from Japan, who would be involved? Who would protest? I mean, we would protest, but what type of action would we take?
Well, that's very difficult because we are so intertwined in manufacturing with China. Our economy is based on China and theirs is based on ours. We would have a very hard time doing anything that would hurt Americans by doing the same kinds of sanctions or the banking debacle that we've tried to do, but really hasn't worked. The only thing that's happened is the ruble has gone down to pennies on what it was worth.
They said it's worth less than a penny.
Yeah, but the Russians have always been based on dollars. Hold on 1 second. Rock and wrap it up. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, Malcolm.
Okay.
We are an economic country, and we as a think tank are very much based in being an anti-poverty think tank. What is going to happen if our inflation is going to eat into all of the increases that have happened in dollars per hour? Now it's, our goal is $15 an hour to give to most of our workers. What happens if you raise them from $11 to $15, but the inflation went up to $20? So whatever you've given them is going to be eaten up in inflation, and you really haven't increased their quality of life. That bothers me.
Excuse me, Syd, for a minute. Could you have Diane close the door? I see her walking around in the kitchen.
I will.
Thank you.
Of course.
I mean, we should have her back on the show. I think the first or second show we did, she was a part of it.
Yeah. She is, she's involved in a lot of other stuff.
Well, then, so are you.
So we've had an interesting week. We had another discussion with DoorDash, and I may have mentioned it last week or maybe not. Yeah. So we are now looking to have DoorDash help us to do recovery of assets. And the assets that we're looking to do mainly are toilet paper. We have buildings in the city that have not had consistent toilet paper pickups. And I think that DoorDash could be a very, very important adjunct to what we're doing.
Yeah, with the larger hotel chains like the Hilton or in the Holiday Inn, wouldn't they have one company that...
So we actually worked with the Marriott chain for many, many years. What wound up happening was, instead of having a toilet paper roll, you could change your own paper. They had a toilet stick that you could put your own toilet paper on. So in the past, it was difficult to change toilet paper rolls. Now it's much easier to change toilet paper rolls. In the past, there were little bottles of soap, shampoo, conditioners. Now on the walls of many of the showers are bottles that are filled by the hotel, and they don't need to use plastic bottles.
Yeah, you had mentioned that, except now with the COVID, it's...
You would think that people would be concerned. Not really. The virus doesn't last more than a half hour on a surface. So that's something that we've been able to go up. Let me just, one of my...
You're a busy man.
That is part of my diabetic regimen, where I wear a sensor, which tells me what my blood levels are, sugar levels. I have a pump, which I then give myself insulin automatically. It's a brand new device.
Are you diabetic or?
Yes, I've been diabetic for 30 years,
Oh, wow.
but I'm under control for the most part, knock wood. And I treat myself as a type 1 diabetic, but in reality, I'm a type 2 diabetic, which
Yeah, with
means,
what you do, I don't think you would have time to be a diabetic.
well, you got to do whatever you got to do. But I just want to live as long as I can or die in the attempt. You
Yeah,
know,
that's what we all do, hopefully.
it's my father's line. I take credit for that.
Well, my line is there a life after birth?
I hope not. It would make my job easier if we were all equal in the womb.
Yeah, and now sometimes I think that if there is a God and there's a system, right? God sends us to this world to test us, and then we go to the real existence, afterlife.
Oh, you
This
see,
is the proving ground.
I have the exact opposite. I don't believe in an afterlife at all. I only believe here and now,
Yeah.
and that's why I do everything here and now.
Yeah.
If there is an afterlife, maybe I'll get lucky. But at this point, I don't believe. If there's anything I can do to make a better planet now, that's what I do.
Oh, definitely. But I get frightened about when I think about it, I get frightened about nothingness. I can't I can't
You can't
imagine
fathom it.
not being. No.
What
It's
about
frightening.
what about when you go to bed at night and you fall asleep and you are in a unconscious state? Do you dream?
I dream a lot. I
So
I, I dream even when I wake up, like in the middle of the night to do what I got to do. When I go back to sleep, I dream. Not the same dream, but I dream.
right.
I generally have a similar theme.
Yeah, I have completely different ones, but as I'm getting older, I remember less of my dreams. When I was younger, I remembered more of my dreams, and now I don't remember as much. I I enjoy most of them, uh,
Well,
and I've been able to actually fall back to sleep. I'm at an age where I don't sleep the whole night. I have to empty my bladder a couple of
right.
times, but I'm able to fall back asleep at those times,
Yeah,
which
thank
is
God. So am I. I know lots of people our age and a lot younger who wake up and they can't go back to sleep.
that would be a terrible thing. But you know what? There are times like I have an early day where I'm doing a lot of physical activity. At about 4:30, I take a nap for a half hour to an hour, and then I wake up 5:30 refreshed, and I'm able to stay up till 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah, to me, the best time was I remember during my college years. And I lived at home because I went to City College.
Yeah,
Uh, and I'd come home, let's say, 2, 3 o'clock, go to sleep for an hour or two. Then I could stay up to 12, 1 o'clock and get like 5, 6 hours sleep and be refreshed and go to school.
I used to do the same thing. That stopped. I probably need 6.5 to 7 hours a night. And if I don't get it, that's when I would take a nap.
During
If
the
I had an early, did a friend a favor, drove him to the airport, had to get up at 6. Uh, by the time I got home, I was ready to take a nap for 2 hours and got up around 12. It was fabulous.
Mm.
But that's how my body's. But I do a lot of physical work every morning. So I'm lifting 2, 3, 4,000 pounds of food every day. And that I'm sure has taken its toll, but I look at it as great exercise every day.
Yeah, I do it just the opposite. I don't do any physical work, but I work out with weights and I walk and run 3 miles a day.
That's a lot of exercise.
Yeah. So it's not, again, you do actual physical work, lifting
Yeah.
up. Well, actually, I did physical work this weekend. My younger son has decided he wants to move in with his girlfriend. They've only been going 7 years.
Right.
They're high school sweethearts. But we moved him out, and that is tiring.
Did your other son help?
My other son helped, but that was Saturday. Sunday, my older son celebrated, well, actually Saturday was his birthday, but we had a brunch on Sunday.
Nice.
He celebrated his 27th birthday.
Our youngest is 28, son Dylan, and he moved in with his girlfriend about 6 months ago.
Well, that's a new way. I remember in my past life, when I was about 22, I moved in with my girlfriend, and we lived in the West Village. She was not secretive about it. I was, because it wasn't proper. People would think less of her if they found out that I moved in. It only lasted about 6-7 months.
Did
But I
you
remember,
ever? There was a great restaurant in the West Village we used to go to called Chumley's.
yeah, I think it still might be there as far as I know.
That was a hamburger place in the West Village. I love that place. We used to go there all the time.
We used to go to a place that opened on Bleecker Street called the Pink Teacup, and it was owned by he was huge, a black chef from the South, and everything was Southern cooking. First time for breakfast, I used to have hominy grits.
Oh, I love grits.
And then he would cook bacon, but the bacon I know is, my mother would buy in the store and it was all wrapped. He would have the slab of bacon and he cut his own slices. So the bacon was thick. And then he made the greatest Southern fried chicken.
I am an aficionado.
Yeah. Anyway, so getting back to business. So how do you expect this to happen soon with DoorDash? I always get DoorDash or Dash Door.
DoorDash, and their people are called Dashers. And the nice thing is that DoorDash is going to pay them whether they're picking up a for-profit meal to bring someone, or they're picking up a voluntarily cooked meal to bring to someone. They're going to pay them either way. So that's a fabulous donation by DoorDash.
Yeah.
I could see them in the next couple of years going to some of their larger food people like Chipotle or Panera or some of the larger chains, and asking them for substantial donations to their foundation.
Well, the food that the stores get rid of, so they haven't used or they cook, is that a tax deduction for them, or can they deduct that at all?
No, it is basically garbage. There's food that would have gone into trash. Now, there are some companies that give food to food banks. That is a donation. Canned foods, that's a donation, but not what they take from these stores. Now, in Europe right now, in France, Italy, Germany, and England, there are laws that are passed that food chains cannot throw short-dated food away. So they now have a means of feeding the hungry in their countries with short-dated food items. So they have to have different coatings when they put things on the shelf or in the refrigerator or in the freezer, so that they know 2 days in advance that this food is going to be being donated. Mm-hmm. And I spoke to at that time, the new mayor of New York 9 years ago, Bill de Blasio, and he had a whole organization set up for sustainability. We couldn't get anywhere. We wanted to have New York City become the first city in the United States that passed laws that short-dated food cannot be, has to feed the hungry of New York. And we could not get it passed. In fact, the people that headed that agency both resigned and both stayed in the business of what's called zero waste, but to no avail.
Are you going to try that again? Are you going to try that again with the new Mayor Adams?
I don't think so. I think it has to come from a larger, it has to be New York State. Like, I'm very proud this next couple of months, a law which I helped write 2 years ago is going to go into play. And it was called the New York State Food Donation Act. I had already written it and had it passed in the state of Tennessee 4 years ago. And that law basically says that all food under the bailiwick of a state that is prepared but not served cannot be thrown away. So food from state hospitals, state colleges, state penitentiaries, state agencies, that food that is prepared but not served should feed the hungry in those cities. If the food cannot be used for people, it can go into what's called an anaerobic digester, and that food can then be turned into methane, which could be used to heat buildings and be used for fuel. And that law was passed.
Is methane a approved fuel, that doesn't
Sure.
cause a carbon footprint?
No, not at all. You're keeping it in a contained area, like you would any other gas that is flammable.
Because I haven't read the report, I think it was in yesterday's paper, with the UN talking about the climate control and what's going to happen to this world. And parts of the things they were talking about were it's going to be a lot of famine. There's going to be a lot of poor people.
I am not a believer in that UN report at all after reading it. When I first read it 5 years ago, it made no sense at all. Our planet's going through its normal climate change that it does every million or so years. There'll be an ice age as there was in the past. There's nothing that we could do to change the cycles that our planet goes through. We've already gone through 3 of them.
But how could you say it, like merely like maybe 100 or 200 years ago, we weren't burning all this carbon gas, this carbon footprint. We didn't have the facilities.
But the planet was still changing.
Yeah, but not as fast as it's doing now.
It is going to be changing at the speed that it changes, regardless of what we do as human beings. It's going to change. And we're not going to make it any faster or any slower. This is what our planet does. It's part of its life cycle.
Yeah.
And people don't want to believe it. And that's what our planet does.
I believe there's certain natural changes, but I think we are accelerating the change with what we're doing.
Yeah, I disagree. I believe that there are other things that are equally difficult. You know what the largest source right now of potential problems for us? Peat. Peat is a natural substance. It's a step before coal. So you've had millions of years of growth of organic compounds. When they die, they fall and they get compressed. And when they're really pressed, like through a metamorphic process, they become coal, bituminous, anthracite. But if they don't get pressed, they form peat. And all that is organic material that, by the way, is used in countries that can't get coal to heat their homes. Peat has been used for thousands of years all over Europe as a substance that can be used for making fire or heating your house up.
It's a complicated world.
Very much so. And there are other reasons why I believe we should be frugal. And that is there can be a lack of resources that will happen. Now, we've had extinction of animals over the years. What happens if we run out of something like lithium? You know that all batteries that are going into these EVs, these electric vehicles, they need lithium batteries. Well, lithium only comes from very few places on this planet. When we use out the lithium, what are we going to do for batteries?
We'll come up with another source of energy for batteries.
I don't look at it that way. I believe that we have 2 ways of using our planet's natural resources that we are not taking advantage of. The first one we did, and we had a hard time controlling, and that is uranium. There is billions and billions of tons of uranium. The Chinese now every 57 days are building a power plant which is fueled by uranium.
But
They are
how do we get
going
rid of the
away,
waste? It seems to be the big problem with uranium or doing something with the nuclear.
surrounded with lead and put it into deep caves. That's how you do it.
And will that last forever?
100%. And uranium decays over time anyway to become other elements.
Because
The other way, and I brought this up in the past, and that is geothermal resources as a means to heat water to run turbines to make electricity.
Mhm.
And west of the Mississippi, the surface is less than 2 miles to get to magma. So if we dug a 10-foot hole 2 miles down, we would hit magma and we would have an unlimited supply of heating water to run turbines. And that can be done in every state. It's already being done in New Mexico. The whole city of Denver is now powered by geothermal from New Mexico.
but somehow that theme seems, well, I don't know, as someone who has no knowledge of this, that if we go to the center of the earth or
Not center of the earth. No.
would it throw off the balance?
Oh, absolutely
planet?
not. You're talking about magma that is sealed under the subcutaneous layers, the subterranean layers. There are 3 layers that make up the planet. Very close to the surface is magma.
Yeah.
Always has been.
Yeah,
And it's all over western Mississippi. We have the youngest mountain range in the world in the Rocky Mountains.
Sid, after I do the show with you, I'm very tempted to go over back to college and take a science course and find out what the hell's happening. But anyway, our time is up, believe it or not.
Oh, that went pretty quickly.
Our shows go very quickly. I hope the audience feels the same way.
Us too. But so
Anyway,
I think we covered a lot of things.
Let people know where they could reach you.
So please give us a call, 1-877-691-FOOD, rockandwrapitup.org. You can follow Rock and Wrap It Up on Facebook and on Twitter.
And on MalcolmPresents.com.
And MalcolmPresents.com. And we'll look forward to seeing you again next week.
Yeah, I think, as I told you, I'm working with Maxine to try to do an all green show.
That would be awesome.
We could have you telling us, as one of the shows, telling what will work, what will not work, and whether it really matters.
Well, everything matters if it's going to affect people's thinking. And people have to continue thinking. And I hope people listen to me and go and Google geothermal.
Geothermal, okay, I'll make a note of it.
Geothermal. Take a look at it. See how it's being run now, and see if that's not something you want to pressure your state legislatures to look at.
Anyway, Sid, you have a great week.
Thank you. You
I
too.
just want to remind you, we'll do it 2:30 next week.
Done.
Okay, or 5:30 your time.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Peace.